Hello. My name is Eric and I am going to be your trainer for System Configuration Tool, SciCon.
Oh hi Eric. I am Tina. Today I look forward to get trained in various aspects for using SciCon.
Sure, at the end of this training session, you should be able to create a simple workflow. Let's start. Requirements for this scenario. 1. Source feed 1 will be pushed to server 1. 2. All files from feed 1 should be tagged for auditing purposes. 3. All files should be uncompressed, assuming source is sending these as compressed. 4. These files should be passed to ETL-APSA parser for further processing. Let's open Internet Explorer and type in URL for SciCon application. On successful login, main page is displayed. This landing page is divided into 3 main sections. Section on the left consists of a navigation tree. Section on the right displays implementation settings for corresponding item from navigation tree. Lastly, bottom section of the page shows messages from application confirming whether an action was successful or not. In addition to assets, section on left side also has accordion menus for other applications like Workflow, Scheduler and Unicon. Let's open Assets and go through different configuration options we have. Assets accordion is divided into 3 categories: System, Infrastructure and Application. Under System category, users can configure mail server, FTP or SFTP server, and other database connection types.
So let's say if there was a requirement for pulling files from a source server, then user can add this as an asset with supplied credentials, which will be used by workflows to be created. Is my understanding right?
Absolutely. This is where defining assets beforehand comes in handy, not to mention, if server credentials change at any time, it can be modified globally with least amount of effort. Continuing on, we have Infrastructure category. Here user has to define servers based on the functions they would be assigned to perform. In our scenario, server 1 and server 2 would be receiving files from source system, so we can name the group as gateway, and create 2 server assets under this group. Select New, and go to Implementation Settings section. Then, fill in IP address, OS version and location of servers. Then, give appropriate name for this asset. In our case, we name it Server 1. And press Save. As you may have noticed, bottom section of the page shows messages from application. There is message for every action we have performed so far. Let's create another server asset named Server 2. Now that we have our server assets defined, let's create public folders. Basically, we are going to define a folder path, which exists on the physical server. This will later be used in our workflow implementation. As before, we create a group and then define folders we will be using further down. Select New. You will see most of settings are already populated. Choose host drive and folder you would use for a particular operation. In our scenario, we will create D drive as my public folder on server 1. Similarly, we will create D drive public folder for server 2. This basically finishes configuration of assets.
Great. That was easy. Now can we create a workflow?
Before we start creating workflow, we will need to create a task group, under which workflows can be saved. To do this, click Task Groups under Scheduled Tasks accordion and select New. Give appropriate group name and choose which server this particular job would be running on. Choose log location. Enter the path where you would like application to write logs and press Save. The group should now be visible under Task Groups and Tasks. There are 2 categories under Workflow accordion: Templates and Type. Select Type, and then select New from Canvas menu. You will be presented with what I call as an empty workflow. A workflow essentially has a start, an execution line, and an end to it. Here, you will also see other menu options, which will be used to create our workflow. To get information of each icon, place your cursor over the icon, and the name of application is displayed. You can refer to user manual for further details. Let's start by putting a schedule for workflow to run. Choose schedule icon and drag on top of the start icon. Since files would be received from upstream, we would need a file collector module. File collector module essentially tags source files and moves them to a predefined directory. In our case, input a file zip unzip component. Again, we will select file collector and file zip unzip component and place them onto execution line. Then open Workflow Settings by double-clicking on Start icon. Here you will enter workflow name. Workflow type, which is the one we created under Scheduled Tasks accordion earlier. And workflow group, this can be any name of your choice. Just type the name in workflow group field. Rest of the settings can be left to defaults. Press apply and then save. You should see this workflow has been placed under workflow type and then group we defined. Now we move on to defining parameters for rest of the components. Double-click File Collector icon to open Settings. Give appropriate name to File Collector step. Choose connection type. Select Local Copy, because source files would be residing on our local drive. Give a unique module name which will be associated with input files. Select Input Directory, this is the location where input files will be placed by source. Give file mask for input files. Then move on to Output section. Select Path for output directory and type in exact location. Choose File Validation Procedure, if required. Then give initial load control status for files. In our case we will give end status denoting new files. Click Apply, close and then save. Now let's fill in settings for file zip unzip component. Again, fill in an appropriate name. Ensure Enabled is ticked. Go to Main section, select Use Load Control to Yes. Type in same module name which we choose in File Collector step. Define input and output paths. Then choose Uncompression method from drop-down, in this case we will use ungzip. Choose Load Control Source Status and Destination Status. Choose Null for appending timestamp to file name setting. Scroll down to Processing section and select Yes, for Continue Processing if error occurs setting. Then press Apply, close and then save. Final step would be to apply a schedule to this workflow. To achieve this we double-click on Schedule icon. Again fill in name and go to Triggers section, click Add. Here we will choose Trigger Type, which can be of type once-off, recurring or a schedule. We will choose once-off. Then choose what time this workflow should be triggered and the date. Press Apply, and for this trigger should be visible with trigger details. Again press Apply, close and then save the workflow. Now that configuration of workflow is complete, we will look at Scheduler Console. This console presents users to start and stop tasks in addition to viewing status of all scheduled tasks. To open Scheduler Console, open Internet Explorer and type URL, http://servername/shidcon. This would present login screen similar to Scicon Console. Then log in with given credentials. Here you will see list of all tasks that have scheduled using Scicon Console. We can see our workflow is listed under all tasks with a status of never run. From this console we can execute this task manually by pressing green play button. We can check all past executions by clicking on Name of Task. We can also check current status by clicking Status Value. So Tina, I am hoping this training session has helped you understand how easily SciCon and SciCon consoles can be configured to set up a predefined task or group of tasks.
Absolutely, I can see these tools have a lot of potential in terms of setting up standard and custom workflows.
This wraps up our tutorial for how to create a simple workflow. You can always refer to user manuals, which have detailed explanation of each step, settings and components.